I guess it's no afternoon. It's 11 here, 10 in California, 1 o'clock in the East Coast. So good afternoon, I think is the correct phrase. Alrighty, we're going to get all the software up and running. And as you come in, I would love to hear what your biggest struggle is right now when it comes to getting your team to take ownership. So I'm going to hit this slideshow. I'm going to hit this here. Yes. Why are you not letting me do that? This is why we get on early. So Shift 5. Oh, that's why. Share screen. And you know what? We're going to do entire screen. So perfect. All right. As you are coming in, hit me with this question right here. While you wait, drop in the chat, what's been your biggest frustration this week? Specifically, if you could talk about getting your team to take ownership, that'd be awesome. But anything, we can talk about anything while we're getting this set up. Oops. So Friday FAQ and our Q&A, I guess is what we call it. Q&A, and how do I? Again, we start right at the top of the hour. So if you're here early, come say hi, drop in the chat the answer to your question here, and we'll get started in about 2 minutes right at the top of the hour. I'll get my team to take more ownership instead of coming to me with their problems. I have to type this out for one of the programs that we're on. So have that, go live on that program too. And I'm going to make sure I've got the chat here so I can see it. And that one says it's starting. Sweet. Looks like we're live on all the platforms now. We will get started right at the top of the hour. So as you're coming in, if you are here before the top of the hour, got this question here. While you wait, drop in the chat. What's been your biggest frustration this week? Obviously, if you want to talk about getting your team to take ownership, that'd be great. But any frustrations would be happy to discuss. For some reason, okay, it is showing up there. Good. And then I'm going to raise this desk and take my sweatshirt off. It's not liking that. Oh, okay, something didn't like that. Sweet. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Looks like we got people coming in. It's always the funnest part, seeing if I can get stuff to come in on time. Great. Looks like we are live. Okay, great. We are at the top of the hour, so we are going to get started. All right. My name is Chris Guyman, and I'm the Time Freedom Lawyer. And every Friday, we are doing this question and answers. So if you have questions, every Monday, we're actually jumping on and asking questions in our Facebook group. So there's a Time Freedom Lawyers Facebook group that you can be a part of. So if you join that group every Monday, we kind of do a poll, and you guys can ask your questions. Whichever question gets voted on the most is what we will then cover on Friday. So yeah, this is kind of fun. So be here, put it in your calendar. We try to make this as fun and exciting for people as we can while still answering really good questions, right? So what's the question we have this week? It's how do I get my team to take more ownership instead of coming to me with their problems? This was a big one that we've seen, and I'm seeing it in the chat, right? People saying getting my team to implement the 131. Biggest frustration is a broke system, spent a lot of time rebuilding. So we're getting these conversations already in here, but it's a great way to make sure. Oh, I got an email. That's funny. Maybe I'll have to do screen or the screen instead of the whole page so that people can't see my emails coming in, but that's okay. So this is a good one, right? So here's the question I want to pose to you as you're thinking through this, right? Does your team understand what their role is? And I love to answer questions with questions because I think that ends up being one of the biggest things here. So I want you to think through that today as we're going through and we're answering this question. I really want you to answer for yourself. Does my team understand their individual role? Because I think that's going to help. Now, this, I hope, is interactive. So if you are struggling with specific elements of this as we're working through the question, please drop them in the chat. I'm watching them. I've got one chat here and I've got another chat here. So I kind of have to go left to right to see all of the different chats, but I'm watching those. So if you have specific things, please ask, because that makes this so much better and so much easier for us to, so much more interactive and helpful if I know what you're specifically dealing with. All right, so let's dive in. How do I get my team to take more ownership instead of coming to me with their problems? So there's a couple things here that I want you to do. And the things that we'll cover today is obviously a clear answer as to why your team isn't taking ownership and what to do about it. There's a 4-part ownership formula that I actually don't know if I've ever taught anywhere. So even my current coaching clients may have never seen this before. So we're going to go through and talk about that today. And then if you stay to the end, we actually have a tool and a resource that we'll send to everybody for free for those who came and participated. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with these Q&As is actually build like summaries and resources and tools that you can use in your practice to apply what you've learned. I think learning is great, but knowledge without action is futile. And so I'm trying to give you resources that help you apply what you've learned and actually get results from doing this. So now, as we're going through this, I kind of wanted you to take some time to think to yourself, why does this question matter? Why are we even asking this question, right? And I think we all know the answer. You're here because it's been a frustration, right? But I want you to also understand that there's a better way. So when your team is not taking ownership, that means they're bringing their problems to you, and that means you're the bottleneck. So if you aren't available to answer their questions, or if you don't, whatever, they can't get their questions answered, so they don't work. Alternatively, that also means they're interrupting you. I was working with a law firm earlier this week, and they were talking about just how much time was wasted and lost because of interruptions. I think everybody at this point has heard that saying that if you are deep in a mental task and someone interrupts you, it can take up to 20 minutes to get back into that flow state and get stuff done. And that's kind of the big issues that we're facing here, right? Is even these little interruptions can end up costing you 20 minutes. With this company that I was working with, it was actually yesterday morning. We did this because a client called and the receptionist answered. Now her job is to answer. So yes, it interrupted her flow state, but that's fine. That's her job. We try to give her tasks that it's okay to be interrupted on. But obviously she was interrupted. She then called the office manager, the paralegal type person in this company, to ask that person a question. And they were deep in the middle of a project that really shouldn't have been interrupted. But because the receptionist didn't have the ability to answer this client's question, she had to interrupt the paralegal. The paralegal then lost about 20 minutes of productivity. It was not a question that she was able to answer. And so she ended up calling the associate attorney. The associate attorney actually didn't know the answer. And so they ended up having to call the owner and interrupt them. And I was like, man, so yes, we interrupted the receptionist, but I'm not going to count that 20 minutes because that's their job. But the paralegal, it legitimately, even though she wasn't able to answer the question and she only was about 2 or 3 minutes on the phone, it ended up costing her about 20 minutes of productivity because she wasn't, because she couldn't get back in the flow state. Well, then same thing with the associate and same thing with the attorney. So that one client conversation ended up costing the firm over an hour of productivity, even though it only took about 5 minutes for the partner to give the answer, right? So that's a big part of this, right? Is when that was an example of a client asking a question, but the same thing's true inner office, right? I had my team, for some reason, they realized yesterday that they can actually call my phone in my office. They haven't been doing that before. And yesterday I got like 4 calls. And 1, they're sitting right there. You don't need to call me. 2, my door's shut. They know that when my door's shut, it means I'm doing something that can't be interrupted. But they called me 4 times. And I'm like, man, that was 4 interruptions that interrupted my flow state. So you can guarantee we had a conversation today about not calling me because that cost me quite a bit of productivity, even those little interruptions. So that's the biggest thing for me when I'm thinking of this is the cost to the CEO and his productivity, or any of the management team, every time they're getting interruption. The other side of this is that it's kind of interesting because we as humans are inherently lazy. Now, I know we don't like hearing that, but it's the truth, right? We have been biologically designed to preserve energy. So whenever we can, we will find the way of doing it as simple as possible so that we can preserve energy in case we need to run from a saber-toothed tiger later, right? Now we don't have saber-toothed tigers anymore, so maybe we shouldn't be so lazy in our thought process, but it just is what it is. And as soon as we realize that we are biologically wired to do that, it is incredibly helpful. We can work through that, and we can do 5 a.m. clubs and all the other things to be more efficient with our time, right? But at the end of the day, we are biologically wired to find the simplest solution to things. So generally speaking, that means having someone else do it, right? If something's hard, but I have someone else do it, that means it's no longer hard for me. And so we have then, again, been biologically designed to ask other people to do things for us. So your employees are doing this. And even if you consider yourself a hard worker and they consider themselves a hard worker, it's still valuable and helpful to understand that we've been biologically designed to act this way. So when a question comes in to your employees and they don't know what to do, they've been biologically wired to ask someone else how to solve that because it's easier, right? However, the flip side is true here. We as human beings find the most fulfillment and happiness in our life by achieving things. And so it's why video games have become so addicting, right? It's because you do things and they reward you. And so you want to get more rewards, right? But every aspect of our life is that way. And the true fulfillment, the happiness you're going to get is when you feel like you're making a difference and you're actually helping people. So that's why video games are addictive, but you can't ever stop because it's actually not fulfilling. It's just fun. Where making a difference in people's lives, helping, solving big problems, that's where we get our fulfillment and our happiness. So it's counterintuitive here, right? We've been biologically designed to not do things, but our happiness comes from doing things. And so as a leader, it's our job to help rewire our employees' brains to get them into the problem-solving mode and to the achievement mode, which is what's going to make them like their job more and be happier and more effective and want to stay longer and all of those things that we want our employees to do. But we've got to get them out of the biologically wired side of their brain to do this. So that's the biggest part here. And I know that's kind of deep. I don't normally go into the details behind it, but I think it's worth spending that time because with this answer, once you've solved it, right, your team solves problems before they reach you, which means you lead, you don't manage. And there's a big difference, right? I noticed how I said you're a leader. I didn't call you a manager. Managers are the people who have to micromanage, right? I want you to be a leader, someone who guides and coaches and helps and fulfills your team's life, which also allows for you to make a bigger impact, right? You can step away and trust that the firm runs without you. That's a big part here. When we talk about time freedom and being a time freedom lawyer, that means you have an abundance of time, money, and energy to do what you love. Time comes from you not having to do everything. I'm not saying you can't of law, then you 100% should keep doing it. Now, tell me if you're here. I just had a little notification that said we had a connection error. So tell me in the chat if you can still see me. Okay, it looks like that one's come back, but in the chat, tell me if you can still see me because there was a connection error. So, okay, looks like people can see me again. Hopefully we didn't miss too much. If you missed something, again, drop it in the chat. Tell me what you missed and we'll go in it. Okay. The last thing is you build a culture of leaders, not a team of dependents. This was one of the funnest phrases my team and I saw as we were building this slide was a team of dependents. And she's like, aren't children dependents on your taxes? I'm like, yes. And the truth is that raising a team is very much like raising children. It's not that your employees are children, but it's that they are designed to be dependents, and we want to help them spread their wings and reach their full potential. This does mean that sometimes your employees will leave as they become good thinkers and like they are going to climb the ranks. And if there's not places for them to climb with you, they will go somewhere else. But overall, your team is going to be a much better place. And so creating that abundance of time, money, and energy is our goal. And being able to do that by creating a team that can run without you. And that allows you to do only the things that only you can do. That means that you can do the parts of the business that you love, but you don't have to do the parts that you don't. And so that's my goal here with this. So with that being said, let's get rid of all those emails and jump in. I had it set so I could share the entire screen because I wanted to bring a couple things in, but I didn't realize I was going to get email notifications while we were doing it. So question, how do I get my team to take more ownership And the answer is you build ownership culture, right? There's 4 things that we do. And let's talk about how to do that. So the 4 ways of doing this is element 1, clarity. Each team member needs to understand their role. And that's why I asked that question at the beginning is, does your team understand what their role is? Do they understand what winning looks like? The reason we love sports so much is because we understand who's winning and who's losing, and we understand how they're keeping score. Your job is no different. If your employees understand what winning looks like and how you're keeping score, the winners will thrive under that situation. The people who want just a paycheck and they don't want to work, they will self-select out of your company. But the people who are winners, they will want to stay. So the first, and I think truly the most important part is, do they understand what their role looks like? And we're going to talk about how to get clear on that if the answer is no to that. The next element is competence. Do they have the tools and resources necessary to win? Have you trained them? Do you have SOPs? Do you have software? Whatever it is that they need to win, do they have that? The next one is confidence. Have you given them the support, the coaching, and the trust? Do they know that if they make a mistake, that you're not going to be mad, and that it's a learning opportunity? Do they have the confidence to move forward in their role and succeed? This is a big part. This is honestly one of the most important parts of being leaders. And when I work with people, often when I'm working with the CEO level of a team, this is what I'm working on, is creating clear definitions of winning and creating clear expectations of when people can take risks and when they can't. Obviously, like if you miss a court deadline, you're going to be frustrated no matter what. So we're going to have some issues with that, right? But helping people know when they can take risks and trying to progress and grow as a company, that's one of the most important elements here. And then the last one is consistency. Do we have the rhythms, reinforcement, and values? Do we have that has ownership is built through repetition, so not a single conversation. So are we consistently applying these things? Secret here is that's going to be done through your meeting cadences. And so do you have regularly scheduled meetings where you're reviewing these things? Now, my team and I, as we were going through this, we're like, these 4 elements is an entire training in and of itself. And so what I want you to take away from today's meeting is, do you have these things? If you don't, that's okay. Most firms don't. We're going to help you build them. But the way you build them is actually through the next thing that we're going to talk about. And that's the cool part here as I'm working with firms. And for those of you who know, I have a coaching system where I help people get to 10,000 a week really quickly. Generally from there, I have another program where I work with firms one-on-one, where I actually work with the CEO one-on-one, and I work with their teams as a group to help build this stuff out. So the stuff that we're talking about today is the stuff I use in that curriculum. So I'm not pitching that right now. If you want it, great, we can talk about it, but I want you to know this is what I teach. And here's the cool part. When I get in with these firms, obviously they've hired me because they don't have these things, right? And so I'm helping them build it. And it's okay to not have them. The next thing that we talk about is how we actually build those. And so we're going to, the KPIs and stuff, that's what we talked about. I'm going to skip this slide for now. We're going to go back to it because I want to talk about this. This is the actual answer that I'm most excited to talk about. So I'm skipping the other stuff to get to here, right? So it's the 1-3-1 rule. Mitch, in his comment, already said getting his team to implement the 1-3-1 rule. So he knows this. That's because he's part of the program and has seen it before. But for those who don't know what it is, let's go through it. Okay. So Dan Martell, in his book, Buy Back Your Time, he introduced the 1-3-1 rule. At least that's where I learned it. If you know of somebody who had this before him, drop it in the chat. I'd love to know. But to the best of my knowledge, he's the creator of this. In that, he says that that first one there is to clearly define your one problem. So often being able to define what your problem is half the work. It really is hard to narrow it down. And you'll notice this, right? Your team will come in, they'll open the door, they'll say, hey, can I ask you a quick question? And then they start telling you a story. Well, I'm talking about the Jones case. And if you remember, and they tell you like 5 minutes about the Jones case and what's going on and what opposing counsel did. They're like, so I guess my question is ... And they just spent 5 to 10 minutes giving you all the background because they didn't know what their question was. They knew they didn't know what to do, but they weren't even sure what their question was yet. This is, again, natural human behavior. And so before they're allowed to ask you a question, And that's what this 1-3-1 rule is before someone's allowed to ask you a question, they have to follow the 1-3-1. So before they ask you a question, they have to clearly define what their question is. So 1, and then they have to come up with 3 possible solutions. So with the growth of AI, it's time to really consider if and when we allow AI into this process, right? I'm a huge advocate for using AI. I bought all of my team members AI membership. Claude is what we're using currently. That's subject to change with the speed of change in AI. But that's what we're using right now. So in our SOP, and this is why I had my screen set up to share the whole thing. So I actually wanted to show you my specific SOP, right? So this is the SOP I have right here. And right here, I have the 1-3-1 rule. And in here, I specifically say when to use AI and when not to use AI. So we're going to go through that in a bit. But I tell them, don't use AI for this part. So when they're coming up with 3 possible solutions, I want them to really be thinking like using the creative side of their brain. And so problem solving, why it's so hard for people is it uses both sides of your brain. So the first side is your creative side, where you're coming up with possible solutions. So I tell them, come up with 3 possible solutions. Don't use AI for this because I want you exercising these things in your brain. So, and I tell them straight up, one of the 3 solutions should be batshit crazy. And I don't swear a whole lot, so it's kind of fun. Every time I say that, they get caught off guard, like, whoa, he swore. But I say that to get people excited about this. And I truly do want one of the solutions to be just crazy as can be. Funny enough, I was doing this one time, and one of my team, it was for my coaching business, right? And they're like, well, you could fly out there and train their team over a couple of days. You could do all these things, and then they would get the results. I was like, you're absolutely right. Can't do that for $500. But we ended up building out elite high tier service for one of my coaching clients where I actually do fly out to their location, train their team. So even though it was a crazy solution for the problem we were facing, it ended up turning into a very high, ticket service that we do offer now. So just because they're crazy doesn't mean they actually aren't plausible, and getting your brain to think through these things is big. So I want you to creatively use the creative, that side of your brain to come up with 3 possible solutions, one of which is super crazy, one of which is probably not efficient enough, and the one in the middle that you're actually probably going to you're actually going to use, right? Then the last element of the 1-3-1 is coming up with the one solution you think is right. So your team needs to be doing this before they ask you a question. And the reason, again, this is hard is you use the creative side of your brain to come up with solutions. Then you have to use your logical side of your brain to determine which of those 3 solutions is the best. And most people are naturally skilled in one of these elements, but not both. However, this is a learnable skill. So anybody on your team can learn this skill if they're willing to try. And that's why the 1-3-1 rule is so helpful. It ends up creating leaders and owners of their roles where they don't have to ask you questions. It's also why you need to do all 3 elements of the rule. They don't just get to tell you, hey, I wanted to do X, and so I did it. No, they need to clearly define their problem. They need to use the creative side of their brain and come up with at least 3 solutions. At one point, I did 2 solutions instead of 3. It was a nightmare inside of my company. The options that they picked were horrible. As soon as we went to at least 3, their solutions got so much better. So learn from me. I'm okay if they do more than 3, but they need to do at least 3. And then they pick which one of those 3 is the best. At that point, I then encourage my team to use AI to refine their decision. Is that truly the most clearly defined question that you have? Are there other solutions that you could have considered that you didn't? And is the one that you picked truly the best one that you can pick? So that is the last step there is we do use AI to refine our solutions, but we use our brain first before we do that, because that's what trains them to become that leader that we're looking for, right? Now, this is so that's the 1-3-1 rule, but I want to show you how I actually enact it in our company, because that's helpful to know that rule. But if you don't know how to use it, it's not super helpful. And so that's why I have my SOP that I can share with you right here. So I'm going to just pull it over everything else. And I'm going to make it bigger so you can see it. So how/when we create SOPs. So let's just make this as big as I can. And it still fit. All right. This was an audible, so my team's going to be frustrated that I threw a Word document over their beautifully created slides, but it was valuable enough I wanted to show you. So this is my company playbook that we use in my law firm, and this is the SOP that I use to train my team. So I train them and teach them on the 1-3-1 rule, just like I'm telling you to do, but this is how we use it. So first and foremost, they have to identify their issue. They need to clearly define, what are we even talking about, right? Once they know what they're talking about and their question, before they do anything else, go check the playbook, right? We have a playbook. We create SOPs. We create, for those who don't know what an SOP is, that's just like a how-to. It's a training on how to do things, right? So I've already done that. So don't reinvent the wheel. If we've already answered this question, don't answer it again. So go check the playbook. If you can't find the solution, or if the solution's not there, then you do the 1-3-1. Now, here's the cool part about this. For all of you who don't have playbooks yet, 99% of the time, they're going to check the playbook, but there's nothing there, right? And so they're going to do the 1-3-1. And that's okay, because we can, in step 5, we're going to use that 1-3-1 decision-making to help create the SOPs later, okay? So if you don't have one, that's okay. This is how we're going to get it. And I told you that's what was going to happen, and that's what's so fun about this process. So then they do the 1-3-1. We already talked about that, right? Once they've picked which of the solutions is the best, then we move on. So, and here you can see, don't use AI for this, do use AI for this, right? I've built that in because AI is important, but it doesn't replace thinking. It just enables our thinking, right? Then we have this magic pill. And what I've done is, once someone has made a decision, we need to empower them to take action. Empowerment is the most important part of getting your team to own things and stop coming to you, all right? So for us, what we've done is use money as the deciding factor as to whether or not they can take action or not. So if the action is going to cost my firm less than a certain dollar amount, then they just have to take action. They are not allowed to ask me a question. They have to take action. So obviously, depending on the person in the firm, depends on how much money I'm willing to risk on their decisions. So probationary employees, the first 90 days when they're in their training period, they're allowed to make decisions that don't cost my firm more than $50. They're new. I don't know them. They don't know me. So the dollar amount is small, right? Once they've gotten out of their probationary period and they're a full-time staff employee, whether that's legal assistants, receptionists, paralegals, anybody not an attorney, they're allowed to make a decision that costs our firm less than $100. And so if the action is going to cost me less than that, they have to take the decision if it's inside of their role, right? If it's not, then obviously they don't make the decision. They go to the person who owns that role. What I've also done here is made it so that attorneys can make $1,000 decisions. These people have obviously been part of my team for a while. They're skilled. I know that they're good at what they do. Most of the time, the decisions they're making in relation to their role is discounts on invoices. And so they do have a little bit more leeway there than other people. It's still not everything though. And then the partners, we have a $5,000 limit. So anything that costs more than $5,000, the partners are then obviously talking together and making those decisions together. But we picked that number because a lot of our marketing stuff is $3,000 to $4,000. And so I wanted my marketing team to be able to make decisions quickly through their partner without having to run everything through all 3 partners every single time, right? So we've done that, and it allows us to go through. Now, if someone makes a decision using the 1-3-1 rule, they document it. So we just have a Word document. We call it issues. If you've read the book Traction, they talk about an issues document for your meetings. So that's just it. It's just a Word document, and each person has their own document, and each person adds any decisions they made to that issues list. And then we review those in their meetings. And based on those meetings, we decide, is this something that happens frequently enough that we need an SOP? If it is, we talk about right there in the meeting, we talk about what needs to be done, what winning looks like, and what's the process of winning, how do we win? And then we build the SOP off of that. So we can do a whole training on SOP creation if you have questions on that. The key here is to record the conversation and the back and forth, and then use AI to build the draft, have the employee finalize it. The person who does the work should be the one who finalizes the SOP. We should never have me be the one who creates SOPs on how to answer the phone, because I haven't answered the phone in 8 years. So I am not the best person to create a SOP on how to answer the phone, right? I can coach and mentor people on how to answer the phone, but the person answering the phone should be the one who makes the SOP. And then I can help refine that based off of my skill set, but they're the ones who's going to make it. And every stage of the business, the people who are doing it are the ones who are going to be closest to the ground. They know how to do it. So they should be the ones creating the SOP, right? But we use this process to allow the owner of the business to have say. There was a time where I had a script and one of my employees, they just didn't like it very much. And so they took a sentence out. And the sentence that was in there was, thank you for contacting us. This is exactly what we do. And don't worry, we're going to take care of you. That sentence is psychologically designed. It's very specific. So when somebody is looking for a solution to their problem, they want to know, is this what you do? Like, are you skilled at this? Are you a specialist at this? And when I learned this, they said, are you a specialist at this? Now, most of the time, a lot of our jurisdictions don't allow us to use the word specialist in our marketing material. So I don't say specialist, but that's what the person's looking for. Like, is this your specialty? Is this your expertise? Are you good at solving this problem? So and then they also want to know, am I making the right choice? Like, this is scary, right? I'm venturing out there. Am I doing the right thing? And then they want to know that they want certainty that their problem is going to be solved. So that sentence, if you notice, it was, you did the right thing by calling us today. Sometimes I would say that and people would just melt, like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that he understands me. So you did the right thing by calling me. This is exactly what we do. Now that sentence is important because I can't say we specialize, but I still wanted to alleviate that concern that this is what we do. This is what we specialize in, right? So I needed him to say it that way because I didn't want him to screw it up and me end up getting, a bar complaint because I said the word specialize or another word I can't say, right? So you did the right thing by calling us. This is exactly what we do. And don't worry, we're going to take care of you. And that means, hey, your problem is solved. You don't need to do anything else. You just hire us and your problem is solved, right? So it's a very intense, psychologically designed sentence that had an incredibly high success rate in converting people. This person who was answering the phone, he didn't know that. He's new. He was in college. He ended up becoming a vet. So a good guy, just not a lawyer. So he took that sentence out. He didn't like it. So that's why it's important that, we let them create the SOPs, but we're the ones coaching and teaching. So not surprisingly, his closing rate was like 15%. Our office at the time was like 45%. So he was like a third of the closing rate of everybody else. And so it was super helpful that I could find out why. When I went into the SOP, I saw when we edit SOPs, we edit them in track changes so that we can see, and he had deleted that sentence in track changes. So I'm like, whoa. You obviously don't understand why we're saying that. And I was able to use that as a teaching opportunity to get back in. He then started using that, and his closing rate went from 15% to 30%. So just that one sentence doubled his closing rate. He ended up never getting to where we wanted to, and he realized he didn't want to be a lawyer. He wanted to be a vet. So I'm glad that the internship worked out for him and he could go somewhere else. But it was crazy. One, how effective that sentence was. Two, that because we have a system like this on how we create SOPs and use them, that I was able to quickly identify, hey, we have a problem. He's at 15%. He should be at least 45. That's KPIs, right? And then we could go and figure out why. We were able to go in, look at the SOPs and find out what he was doing differently than everybody else and fix it, right? So that's really what this comes down to is, and it's why I love coaching and teaching about this so much, is you 100% can own and have a law firm that runs without you. And in that firm, you can then do the things that you want to do and only the things that you want to do. But it takes a lot. What it takes to make that happen is, first and foremost, you have to have a team and you have to have systems. And then that team has to buy into the systems and use them. And then you have to become the CEO that knows how to use them. And how I do this in our coaching program is when I do this, first I start with the CEO. I want to make sure that mindset wise, we're on the same page and that the CEO is ready to let go of things. That whole mentality of I'm the only person who can do this and no one can do it as well as me. We need to break that mentality and be okay with people doing things. Then I like to work with the team. It's really hard to get team to buy in on things. So if you're doing this, I will tell you, if you are implementing the 1-3-1 rule, your team will hate you for 2 weeks. So before you even do it, tell them that, hey, we're doing this thing, and I know you're going to hate it, and but I promise at the end you're going to love it. And I actually, when I teach this to people's teams, I straight up tell them the whole, psychologically, we get happiness from fulfilling and feeling like we're important and that we are achieving big things. And this is how we get there, but it's not comfortable. It's just like going to the gym for the first time, right? If you haven't been to the gym for a long time and you go and you lift weights really hard for a day, you are sore, and you're sore for like a week, right? Now, if you do that over and over again, you'll be able to lift weights effectively and not be as sore. But that first time when you're making the change, it sucks. So I just tell everybody, hey, when we implement this, you will hate me for 2 weeks. That's the cool part about when I do this for attorneys. I tell them that they'll hate me, and so they end up hating me instead of you. But we go in there and do it, right? So when you're implementing this with your team, like, get them excited about the outcome, but then work through it. When I do this with people, I actually do some time saving stuff first. A lot of teams are hesitant to make changes. They don't want to rock the boat. A lot of people are hesitant to make change, especially employees with an employee mindset are hesitant to make changes. So what I like to do when I'm doing this is I actually come in and do a couple of time saving client communication things, the stuff that we talked about last week. I do that with the team first, because that's usually their biggest pain point. And if I can solve a pain point quickly, then they're excited about the changes and they'll buy in on the rest of the stuff. So generally when I'm doing this, that's what I do first. This is what I teach second. And I teach this second because I know how important systems and all those types of things are, but I don't know what are the most important systems for your firm. This helps us find it really quickly, because if you don't have an SOP and they have to make a decision, they use this really quickly, and it really quickly helps us identify what are the 20% of systems that produce 80% of the results. And then we use that to create your systems from there. What's fun with this is once you start creating the systems, that's then like they start identifying this stuff. And so we have to have meetings to review the 1-3-1 decisions that they've made. And it allows us to just naturally step into creating a meeting cadence. Again, most people hate meetings. And so the only reason they're going to be excited about a meeting is that they see it solves a problem. And because we've created a problem by creating these 1-3-1 decisions, they're naturally okay to get into the meetings. With the meetings, we can then refine it and improve things. Well, when you have meetings, the only way for a meeting to truly be effective is if you have good numbers. And so naturally, I get to step into helping people create KPIs and metrics and systems and number creation so that we can have good meetings and know what's happening. That's exactly why when this employee of mine had a 15% closing rate, I knew that because I had good numbers. So that only happened for a couple of weeks. And I was able to identify the problem very, very quickly because I had good numbers. I was able to go back to the systems and figure out what he was doing differently than everybody else. Because we have systems, we can figure out what people are doing differently. I could fix that and double his closing rate and very quickly, right? Now, the cool part is once you have really good numbers, that's where you as a CEO get to up-level yourself to the next level. True CEOs, like I had an opportunity where I actually ran a business for 2 years with a billionaire. So he and I were the two owners of this business. And every single week I got to sit down and watch how he ran a business. So this is a person worth way more than I am, right? I'm not anywhere close to $1 billion. And what fascinated me and just blew me away is he could sit down and look at a profit and loss statement and the other metrics that he had asked us to build for this company. And in 5 minutes, he could tell you more about that business than a business, coaching consultant could do in 6 months. Like his ability to understand and read numbers was what set him apart and turned him into $1 billion owner. The cool thing about him is he wasn't some rich billionaire that, flaunted his money and all this kind of stuff. He was a family man that he used the time and money and energy the abundance of time, money, and energy that he had from owning all of these businesses to spend time with his kids. And he had, he didn't have a jet per se. He had a private plane. It was a propeller plane, but he would use that. He was from Canada and he'd fly down to Florida and do stuff with his family every winter. They would go to Florida to get away from Canada and get into the warm weather. And it was really cool to watch how he used his time, money, and energy to do the things that were most important to him. And he was able to do so much more because he had so much time, money, and energy. And that's the biggest takeaway I want you guys to take from all of these Q&As, all these things that we do, is that my goal is not to help you just make more money. More money is not more happiness. But when you have an abundance of time, money, and energy, you can do some pretty incredible stuff. And you can do the things that matter the most to you. This is how you get there. So having a firm that earns more money, if you use it to do more of what you love, is a good thing. And that's why I help people not just get back time, but also get back time, money, and energy. It doesn't matter how much money you have and how much time you have. If you're dead tired when you're done with work and all you can do is sit on the couch and watch TV, that's not helpful either, right? You've got to have the mental energy to get out and play with your kids. Like my son, he's in ultimate frisbee right now, and all he wants to do is throw the frisbee, and it's tough. And he's not as good as I want him to be yet, right? And so I end up just running around chasing this frisbee because he can't throw it to me yet. That takes a lot of time and energy to be able to do that, right? Both physical energy, I need to be in good enough shape that I can chase this frisbee around, and mental energy to be patient enough with him as he's learning. The cool thing is a year ago when he was playing, he literally was throwing the frisbee like vertically. You know, you should be throwing it this way. He was throwing it this way. And they actually won a championship with him throwing the frisbee the wrong way. Luckily, there was no wind or it would have never worked. That was less than a year ago. And now he's on a competitive team where he's even like throwing it underhand and throwing it to people. And he had a really cool play last week where he catches it and hurries and flips it between two defenders, gets it to his teammate, who then like did a quick little short pass to another teammate, and they scored. I was like, man, he has grown so much over the last year, from vertical throwing to underhand between two defenders to score. That came from the time and energy he put into practicing. And a lot of that came from me being able to do that with him. And I would have never been able to do that if I had a traditional law firm that required me to do all of the work. Now, am I working more than 40 hours a week? Most of the time, the answer is yes, because I want to, because I love it. But when stuff comes up and I can't, then I don't. And that's what I want for you guys too. And it all comes down to this. So this is the system that we use. If anybody has questions on this 131 rule or getting employees involved and owning things, happy to answer those now. We always have a Q&A here at the end. For those who have stuck around, I'm impressed. If you comment ownership into any of the chats, whether it's whatever program you're on, if you comment ownership, we have resources. We'll go and find you wherever you comment it. But if you comment ownership, we will send you our free Culture of Ownership toolkit, where it's just kind of a step-by-step guide on how to implement the things that you've learned here. But now's the time. If you have questions, I'd love to answer them. It can be about this. It can be about something else. I've got 15, 20 minutes. So if people ask questions, I will answer them. Me talking right now, it takes about 30 seconds for the live to get out to all the platforms. So I'm just going to ramble on for about 30 to 60 seconds to see if you guys actually have questions to answer. But the biggest thing and challenge I would have for you guys right now is going back to what we talked about before. Does your team understand their role? And do they understand what winning looks like? That's going to make the biggest difference out of anything that we talked about today. If they don't, create that for them. And there's a lot of ways you can do that, company organization charts and those types of things. But focus on that first. If you need help with it, I'm always happy to help. Again, these Q&As, they're meant to be free. But I'm too excited about this thing. And since no one's asked a question yet, I'm going to talk about it for another 2 minutes until questions come in. But we've had a really cool thing happen recently where I used to just offer one-to-one coaching. So we would meet twice a month and I would help people. And it was helpful. I mean, I never had someone do it that didn't like it. But personally, I always felt like we could achieve more. And the truth is, there's a dozen programs out there that do one-to-one coaching, right? And honestly, pretty much all of them are similar. Even what I was doing was similar to what other people were doing. So actually, we stumbled upon this on accident. But I had one of my coaching clients, and he ended up having cancer. And so he couldn't run his business the way that he wanted to, right? And so he was getting treatment 3 times a week. And so I worked with his office manager to run things for him while he was gone. Now, good news is we've been working together for 4 years. So he already had a really good team, and he'd been in and out of programs over 4 years, but he already had a really good team. He already had an associate. He already had, an office manager, those types of things. But he effectively stepped out of the business for 12 weeks. He checked in when he could, but with his treatments 3 times a week and the mental and physical toll those treatments took on his body, he was effectively out of the office for 12 weeks. When we did that, I ended up meeting with his office manager, and then I would meet with the team. And the amount of progress we were able to make by working with the team directly was just insane. So when he came back, I was like, hey, we're not stopping this. Like, I love working with you. And in the first meeting, I now work with him and or his office manager. And the second meeting, we work with his team and we implement the things that we learned. And his business has just taken off. And so because of that, I was like, you know what? This is how I need to do one-on-ones now. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to spend all my time working with just the business owner, because at the end of the day, especially as your team grows, your team is the one who's doing most of the stuff, and the team is the ones who need to buy in, right? If you know about time blocking and all this kind of stuff, but your team doesn't use it and they interrupt you anyways, it doesn't really matter, right? And so that's the big thing that we're doing here now is, for those who are looking for it, we actually jump in and once a month I work with you, and once a month I work with your team, giving you all the tools and resources and stuff necessary to implement this stuff. So if you're doing this stuff and you're having questions and want help with that, I'd be happy to hop on a call and talk with you on how we do that. I think we have 2 spots left. And so this one-to-one thing. So don't have a lot of them. We open them up as much as we can, but my time is limited. So I have to keep it refined on how many we have. But if that's something you're looking for, great. It doesn't look like I've gotten any specific questions on this. I mean, I've got people saying it's good, and we have 3 sons. Yeah, this one's good. Accident reconstruction here, and wife is an attorney. I run both businesses. We have 3 sons working with us. I like your rules. So we've got people saying it's good, but no questions on it. So we're gonna jump there. The only question I did have here was, how do you get your team to implement this? And we did talk about that a little bit, right? Where we have them talk the playbook first, have them do this, tell them that they're going to hate it. But then I will say, as part of this, when you implement it, you have to have really good boundaries. When your team asks you a question, you have to say, well, what does the playbook say? And what's your 1-3-1? And guess what? Your team is going to snap back at you. Oh, come on, just answer the question. It's going to take you 2 minutes. Yes. And you just smile and you say, I promise this is going to be worth it. What does the playbook say? And that's how I do it. And some of your team's not going to be snappy enough with you. The ones that have known you long enough, they're going to be a little snappy with you. Being a little patient on that and being okay with them being frustrated, but forcing it through it. I've never worked with a team that did this and did it for 2 weeks, and the team didn't like it, and they weren't happier in their job than when they started. But it is a little tough. So put those boundaries in place and you should be good. So, well, this is it. It's been good. Thank you for all the participation and those who've come. Again, if you comment, what was that comment? If you comment ownership in any of the chats, or if you say, hey, can I get the resource? We're going to send that to you too. But if you just want to type one word ownership, we'll get that resource out to you. As always, we do this every single week. So look for the next set of questions next Monday inside the Time Freedom Lawyers Facebook group. If you're not a part of that group, go ask to be a part of it, and we'll get these going. So look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you. And if you need anything, just let me know. All right. And for those who are here still, you know that we got to get some of these other programs caught up to speed. So I got to give it like 30 seconds, and then we'll roll. Looks like I'm looking to the right, and as soon as I can see me looking to right in the video, we'll stop. Sweet. Looks like we're good.